Parties this afternoon in a historic deal. Discussions went to the wire, 17 hours past the deadline, 48 hours of non-stop discussions. Then the formal announcement at 5:36 this evening, and applause from the representatives of Sinn Féin and Unionists, the Prime Ministers of Britain and Ireland. Our Ireland correspondent John Irvine reports.
This will be the image remembered in history. The Ulster Unionist and Sinn Féin leaders applauding the same thing, a peace deal. By reaching an agreement in this room, all the parties did what many people said couldn't be done. And the man who guided them all the way could not conceal his delight.
Never have I felt a sense of gratification and responsibility and gratitude that I feel today.
He congratulated everybody in the room for accepting democracy and had a message for those in Northern Ireland who cannot.
We can say to the men of violence all across Northern Ireland, to those who disdain democracy, to those whose tools are bombs and bullets, your way is not the right way. It doesn't take courage to shoot a policeman in the back of the head or to murder an unarmed taxi driver. What takes courage is to compete in the arena of democracy, as these men and women are here tonight, where the tools are persuasion, fairness, and common sense.
These two men, the Prime Ministers, were the senior stewards of the process, and their commitment was total. Before appearing on the steps, they'd not been seen outside castle buildings for 36 hours. They've achieved something that their many predecessors failed to achieve.
In these past few days, the irresistible force, the political will, has met the immovable object, the legacy of the past, and it has actually moved it. The idea that if one side wins something in Northern Ireland, the other loses is gone. The essence of what we have agreed is a choice. We are all winners or all losers. It is mutually assured benefit or mutually assured destruction here. Thank you.
The Irish Prime Minister, in a black tie to mourn his mother, said she would have been pleased that at last progress had been made.
And today's historic agreement marks a new beginning for all of us in Northern Ireland, on the island of Ireland, and in these islands. It's a day we should treasure, a day when agreement and accommodation have taken the place of difference and division. And today is about the promise of a bright future, a day when we hope a line can be drawn under the bloody past.
It had all looked so very different just half an hour before. As the television networks made preparations, it seemed they would not be broadcasting a breakthrough. The Ulster Unionists were divided over whether to go for the deal or not. David Trimble sought help from the Prime Minister, and there was apparently a heated exchange. It was then that Tony Blair telephoned Bill Clinton to ask for his help. The call was made at around 4:15. The American president then spoke to the Irish Prime Minister and several party leaders, including David Trimble. By 5 o'clock, the deal was done. It all happened so quickly after what had been a tortuous and grueling talks marathon. The midnight deadline had come and gone as the hard bargaining continued, but this morning it was clear that everyone expected a momentous announcement.
Well, today is Good Friday, and I think for the people of Northern Ireland it will be a very good Friday.
Some senior politicians, so used to disappointments, could hardly believe it.
What has brought Northern Ireland to this?
I don't know.
Common sense. Common sense.
It's a bloody miracle.
Yep, common sense.
I've just rung my son and I've told him to come up because I want him to be here. And I think everyone feels the same. I know we just want people to be able to say that we're here on the day, this historic day in this century. Thank God we did it before we enter the next.
And this evening, as they sat together in agreement, the party leaders outlined their hopes.
We see this agreement, this treaty, as addressing the wounds that have damaged our society and ensuring that our diverse traditions attract respect, and above all, as laying the foundations for a healthy, vibrant democracy.
I hope that when they leave here,
they will have left behind new arrangements which allow us to put the past behind us and help to build a bridge into a future for all the Irish people, for all the people of this island, based on justice, equality and freedom.
90% of the people in Northern Ireland didn't think we'd make it, and you proved them wrong.
There being no further business to come before this proceeding, it is concluded. Good luck. Have a happy Easter. God bless all the people of Northern Ireland.
There was no shortage of emotion as the chairman said goodbye, having brokered a deal that may mean the end of the Western world's most enduring conflict. John Irvine, ITN, Stormont.
Well, live now to our political editor, Michael Brunson, who's been following the day's dramatic developments at Stormont. Michael, is there a feeling of real achievement there tonight?
Yes, there is. It is very palpable indeed. People see this as a job well done. And in a sense, you know, everyone's taken a bow. Tony Blair has received, for example, a personal phone call from the Queen. Just a simple message to say to Mr. Blair, well done, Prime Minister, and how delighted she is about this successful outcome. Senator Mitchell played such a crucial role. I saw him, for example, taking his bows live on American television, going to the American television cameras to speak to the Americans, his countrymen. John Hume. No one's worked harder for peace than John Hume. I saw him being interviewed in French, for example, for French television. So the eyes of the world are here too. But of course, the key thing, they've all got to make this thing work now.
But there were moments, weren't there, Michael, when it all looked like coming unstuck?
Absolutely. I'm told there was absolutely frantic activity when at the last moment it seemed that the Ulster-Union split might scupper things. Of course, the crucial phone calls from President Clinton. And he told, I'm told, he spoke straight to Mr. Trimble, as did Tony Blair, but President Clinton himself said to Mr. Trimble, people simply will not believe this if you wreck this thing at this moment. Please understand, nobody will just believe it's possible. Same message from Mr. Blair.
And what now for Northern Ireland? What happens next?
Well, Sinn Féin have got to ratify this, but Sinn Féin are also saying that this is totally historic. The thought of the Prime Minister of Britain, the Prime Minister of Ireland, representatives of former terrorist groups, and the politicians sitting around the same table achieving something, a quite historic moment. But also Mr. Trimble, the onus is on him. He's put a lot in, of course he has, but he has now got to go out, very difficult job for him, and sell a new kind of unionism. It'll be a hard road for him.
Thank you, Michael. Well, President Clinton lavished praise on Tony Blair and Bertie Ahern for their part in steering the parties towards a deal. The President, who's kept a close interest in the negotiations, said Northern Ireland could now look forward to a springtime of peace.
All friends of Ireland and Northern Ireland know the task of making the peace endure will be difficult. The path of peace is never easy, but the parties have made brave decisions. They have chosen hope over hate, the promise of the future over the poison of the past. And in so doing, already they have written a new chapter in the rich history of their island, a chapter of resolute courage that inspires us all. In the days to come, there may be those who will try to undermine this great achievement, not only with words, but perhaps also with violence. All the parties and all the rest of us must stand shoulder to shoulder to defy any such appeals.
So after 2 years and then hour upon hour of intense negotiation, what exactly has been agreed for the future of Northern Ireland? Joe Andrews reports now on the details of the deal.
This deal will profoundly alter the way in which the province is run. There'll be a Northern Ireland Assembly of 108 members elected by proportional representation in June, and an executive committee of 12 ministers appointed from that assembly. Within a year, they'll create the North-South Council with ministers from Dublin and Belfast. The Irish government drops its constitutional claim to Northern Ireland. They and the British will enshrine the principle that the people of Northern Ireland have the right to decide their own future democratically. A Council of the Isles will be set up with members of other regional assemblies. Terrorist prisoners will get their sentences cut by up to 2/3 if they've agreed the ceasefire. and the decommissioning of weapons is due to start in the summer. A referendum will be held on May the 22nd. It's then that we will find out what people across Ireland think of this deal. Joe Andrews, ITN.
Well, there's been a universal welcome for the deal from politicians, but ultimately it'll be the people of Northern Ireland who decide whether to accept it. Robert Moore has been finding out what they make of it.
Tonight in the bars of Belfast, the news from Stormont was still sinking in. No celebration here. Many of the people have been witnesses to political violence all their adult lives and still can't believe that peace will be achieved.
All it takes is one silly gunman to decide that, OK, I'm going to go off and do something, and then the other side will react again. We could be back to square one overnight.
The LVF and the Continuity IRA are going to carry on from where everybody else left off. So what's going to change, really?
Violence achieves nothing. We have to live in peace with one another. We have to go forward.
Earlier, a group of Protestants and Catholics had gathered together, a peace vigil for the politicians. Here, people genuinely glimpsing that this Good Friday might indeed herald a brighter future. In cruel contrast in Londonderry, a young man was buried, killed in a shooting, and despite today's deal, many fear he will not be the last such victim. Inevitably tonight, even as the politicians celebrate their triumph, many ordinary people are more sceptical, knowing that reconciliation on the ground will prove immensely difficult, knowing too that there are extremists who wish to destroy this deal. Robert Moore, ITN, Belfast.
Some other news now, and the army has been called in tonight to rescue you.
Well, it's a mixture of emotions, really, Dermot. Relief, hope and surprise. I remember when these talks began 2 years ago, the cynicism born of bitter experience suggested they would last only a few weeks. But they kept going. The politicians kept at it. And of course, we came to this extraordinary last 48 hours of intensive activity, a roller coaster rides of emotion, really. Pessimism 1 minute, optimism the next. But the prime ministers were fully committed. Their involvement was crucial. The final intervention of President Clinton was also crucial. It brought the unionists back. I suppose as well as that, one's thoughts must be with the many victims for whom this deal simply did not come soon enough. But the feeling across Northern Ireland tonight will be one of hope. After today, perhaps anything is possible here.
Thank you, John. And that's all for now on the historic day when the politicians finally gave the people of Northern Ireland a hope of a lasting peace. From all of us here at ITN, good night.